Hey guys, EvanNova95 here, coming at you with another Star Wars discussion video. Today's discussion is going to be a direct follow-up / companion piece to my Can a Jedi or Sith Destroy a Planet video, so if you haven't seen that, please go watch it and then come back here so we're all on the same page. Link will be in the description. Now, let me just start off by saying thank you all so much for the overwhelmingly positive responses to the Planetary video. To be honest, I was actually a little bit hesitant going into the production of this one, seeing as both the subject matter and editing style differed from my past work. Fortunately, you guys have assured me that these fears were unnecessary, and I shall continue on this path in the foreseeable future. That said, even a Jedi is not infallible. Many of you brought to light feats within the army to planetary destruction categories that, for one reason or another, were not brought up in the video. Granted, I did state quite clearly that I would be examining the notable instances of these destruction categories, since dissecting all of them would have made the video 4.5 as opposed to 1.5 hours long. But I also understand that what might not seem notable to me may very well be such for someone else. As such, I'm going to go through each of the 5 main feat categories I used in the video and discuss the showings that I straight up missed, as well as giving my reasoning as to why certain displays were omitted. While this will be an edited voiceover, nearly everything from basically the end of these next few sentences will be unscripted, since I want this just to be a smooth fireside chat. Unfortunately, fireside chats are rather difficult to make without another human being to bounce off of, so I have gone and acquired another human being. Or at least as close as I could come to on short notice. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, Ready For.
Hello.
Alright bro, so I know the concept of me, of all people, actually getting something wrong and forgetting something may be a little bit too difficult for you to imagine, but I honestly just kind of want to...
Not at all.
It really isn't it? Anyway, with that said, let's get started. Starting off with army destruction again, a few people asked why I didn't include Jaden Core or the Starkiller clone in my examples due to the fact that they slashed their way through uncountable numbers of stormtroopers and saber wielders in an identical fashion to Kyle Katarn and Galen Merrick. And, yeah, bro, I don't know about you, but I think that sentence alone kind of clears up why I didn't feel it necessary to include them.
Yeah,
Wouldn't you agree?
It's kind of redundant after you've already talked about Kyle. I mean, he's kind of the quintessential example of that sort of, force combatant. Even if it is just the physical side. If you've played through his game, you've played through, Jaden Core's.
Exactly. I mean, Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy are pretty much just the same game reskinned, so it's not really necessary to talk about the feats, even, just because they're exactly the same. Not to mention, I wanted to keep this video as, universally, appealable and accessible as I could, so I wanted to talk about the most popular characters, and as much as I like Jaden Core and even the Starkiller clone as characters, I think we could all agree that Kyle and Galen Merrick, supersede them in terms of popularity in the community.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, it's just the kind of flagship title that got Academy popular, isn't it? The initial Outcast game, so it makes sense to leave that as the primary example. But, worth noting the others as well, so it's good to bring them up here.
Well, of course, and definitely, I mean, Jaden does have an army feat outside of the Jedi Academy game. I mean, he did, blast away dozens and dozens of undead in the Riptide novel, so that is something that is entirely his. But again, it's just I didn't feel it necessary to include him just due to his, obscurity as a character. I will say, though, it is notable. What is a point in his favor, I think, is the fact that he has a feat comparable to Kyle's, despite the fact that in the game, if you go by the official timeline, he's only 15, and Kyle wasn't able to do that at 15, so I do think that is a point in his favor as a character, but yeah, that's pretty much all it is.
Yeah, the Jaden Core thing never really made any sense, because you become a master in the space of, going by game time and how it's played in the space of a few days.
Year.
I mean, yeah, conservatively, it could have been a few days. You have to headcanon explain it around that. But as the game presents it, it's very up for grabs. And he's pulling off some crazy feats. So
yeah. And it's even less distinguishable with, Galen Merrick and the Starkiller clone, because while I do disagree with the belief that they are complete carbon copies, because if you read the novelizations and even play the game to an extent, it's clear that they have different skill sets. But again, the feats are exactly the freaking same. So it's really, there's no point.
In terms of scale, yeah, they're basically interchangeable. Obviously, there are key differences, and I'm sure a lot of people will bring that up in the comments, even in this video. But it's not enough to warrant, their own mention in a specific category. They're too similar, and there's not enough disparity.
I will say, though, the third army feat that we're going to talk about here that was brought up, I do feel like this one, I don't think it would have been necessary to dissect it necessarily, but I do think I should have at least, put a visual in there, and that was Ganner Rhydasso's, last stand in the Traitor novel. Yeah, Callan really likes this feat. What do you call it? You have a name for it.
No, not the feat itself. It's again, the character is the one I'm a big fan of. I like the kind of quasi redemption arc he goes through, and how he, his character growth. So I've always been personally fond. But it's an example of how true oneness with the Force can kind of work, because he's someone who kind of earns the kind of experience. I said kind of a lot here.
Exactly. Yeah, like for those of you who don't know what the feat actually is, basically, Ganner, in order to buy his, allies time to escape Coruscant, he basically takes on like an entire, like literally the book says there's thousands of Yuuzhan Vong soldiers single-handedly, and he basically achieves a state of oneness with the Force, not unlike the level of oneness I mentioned in the Planet video with Dorsk 81 when he was pushing the Star Destroyer fleet, and he basically takes thousands of Vong with him before he's finally overwhelmed. It's kind of like a 300 scenario,
Yeah, more of an augmentation though, rather than kind of a Force feat itself. So it kind of translates.
And martial arts.
Yeah, of course. But the reason I buy it with him, because there are a lot of instances of oneness where it just seems kind of cheap and just convenient. I buy it with him because of the journey he has gone through. At the very start of his story, this would have just been like an attempt at a cocky display because, look how skilled I am. But here it's a genuine and impactful, character sacrifice for him. He's doing it because it's right, not because he wants to show off. And by that point in the story and the nature of the tone of the book and all the different kind of aspects there, I've always really enjoyed it. So yeah,
it's very interesting. But exactly, but again, Ganner is a very obscure character in the grand scheme of things, so it's not really. I will say this though, I think the instance is actually more notable than the character itself in a sense. Like, a lot of people know about this display. Like, they know nothing about Ganner, but they know about this display because it's a very, it was very popular when the book was released. Like, people are like, wow, what is this guy doing? So in that sense, I do think I probably should have at least put the visual of him doing that in there, like as an example of like the army destruction, being very typical for Jedi, and it is very typical for Jedi, as I said in the video. But again, it's just I didn't feel it was necessary to really, talk about him all that in depth, because again, he's just not nearly as well known. It is interesting though, because Ganner, well, he was only a knight when he did this, and that it's an example of a knight literally taking on thousands of Vong soldiers, which are nothing to be messed with. Granted, I don't like Ganner is a knight in rank, but I don't know about you. I actually think he's probably like mid to high master level in terms of like skill and power, but it is still notable.
Certainly in that moment, yeah, I kind of see this as the point where he enters into that kind of Jedi mastery level here. He has learned his lessons. He's taken aboard what he needs to, and the Force is accepting him in the moment. So that's what this is.
Yeah,
so definitely.
Well, he is also noted like before then to have like a high degree of potential. So he's not like he's not like garden variety by any stretch.
Luke has a good crop, that's for sure.
Definitely does. But anyway, yeah, so that's why I should have probably put a visual in there. Didn't feel it was necessary to dissect, but yeah, so that pretty much clears up all the army feats. So moving on. Okay, going into the building destruction category, this was definitely the one that people brought up the least in terms of like me missing things or wanting to see certain feats, but there were at least still a few that I think we should go over. A lot of people asked about Anakin Skywalker and why I didn't include, like his Force scream, his crazy Dooku Force scream from like Labyrinth of People, and he like blows the ceiling. Yeah, exactly, Khan. No, when he does that, people asked why I didn't include that in the building category, and the answer to this one's actually very simple. Although it isn't an impressive feat, the one I used in the video was much more so. Him moving that dreadnought into the pathway of those missiles on that platform in the Clone Wars adventure. I just think that's way more impressive, so I just decided to use that one instead. I mean, in that one, he's like actually, moving something as big as a building, whereas in the Labyrinth one, he just blows the ceiling, off the top.
Oh, easily. I mean, the only thing that really gives the Labyrinth feat any, gravitas or credence even is the fact that Dooku's so shocked by it. So, you imagine in your head the scale of the building to have to impress him. It kind of bigs it up a bit. But otherwise, yeah, you're definitely right. The moving of the Dreadnought is far more interesting and a powerful example. It's just, because as you said, just manipulation on that larger scale is a lot more complicated and therefore impressive than just an outright kind of force blast. Blasting something apart is not as skillful or even just plain powerful as the levitation or telekinesis or just plain manipulation was.
Not to mention, he did he moved that gun emplacement earlier in the Clone Wars. He was this was very early. I mean, I think he was still even a Padawan then. So that's you have him at a lower level doing something more impressive, and to me that just warranted putting it in the video more.
And if nothing else, the speed he's doing it, the quick thinking of the moment, the fact that he's younger, but also the fact that he's doing it while in control. He wasn't having this massive fit of rage when he produced this feat. So
yeah, I mean he was struggling a little bit, but
not
of course.
Nearly. But in terms of what he's doing, he's doing it with relative ease. He should be struggling a hell of a lot more than he seems to be. And it's just the fact that he's in control. He's not raging at Dooku or anything. He's just, this is something he has to do, and he does it. So it's more in control and therefore more impressive baseline feat rather than just something that stands out because he was raging.
Exactly. So yeah, I thought it just made perfect sense to include that one over it. Some other people brought up Jaruas Sabayoth accomplishing on it, funny enough, a very similar feat in the Last Command novel, which is the third book in the Thrawn series. He's like, this galaxy is mine. Just brings down the ceiling.
I mean, talking about raging and losing control, he's kind of the poster boy for that.
He's freaking insane, that guy. I mean, it's like anyone who hasn't read those books, he is freaking crazy, that guy. He's like crazy evil wizard dude. But I mean, really, the reason I didn't include that one is because, well, this might sound a little strange, but it's like I was dissecting Jedi and Sith, and Sabayoth isn't a Jedi or a Sith. He's a Dark Jedi. But then again, I guess I'm kind of eating my own words with that because I did make reference to Lord Nihaks and Jarek. So yeah, never mind.
I mean, there are exceptions to your rules throughout the video, really, but it's the reason you use them as they are exceptions is because they stand out for some other noteworthy reason, that you tend to point out. So it's not something that I think was massively overlooked. And even if you were counting Dark Jedi, it's not that impressive a feat. He's just screaming at, Anakin style with rage. Yeah, it's powerful and yeah, it's noteworthy, but it's not something that necessarily stands alongside the other feats that you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it's not like I didn't include it for some particular reason. Again, no real point to it, And Sabayoth's definitely extremely powerful, particularly in that time, because there weren't exactly too many Force sensitives running around at that time. But again, he's not like the peak. I wouldn't even say he's like the most powerful Dark Jedi. I'd say Jarek and Dasan are definitely above him, at least in terms of overall combative ability. So yeah, it's just kind of unnecessary. That said, people did bring up stuff for a character that is definitely not obscure. Palpatine. He has two instances where buildings are brought up where he could destroy them. The first was in issue 88 of Star Wars Insider, and that virtual Sith little story where he's talking about how he could easily demolish those puny buildings I love that Palpatine, who usually speaks so eloquently, uses the word puny. I don't know. There's something about that I just find endlessly amusing.
Yeah, when he's reveling in his own ego, he does tend to get a little bit less eloquent most of the time. As
right.
Limited power. Yeah, he's a bit crazy. But the reason this is probably less noteworthy than otherwise would be is the fact that it's all talk. I have no doubt that this is a person that could do that. I mean, if anyone's going to be capable of pulling this kind of feat off with as much ease as he does, say so, it's Palpatine. But at the same time, you can't really draw on it as a concrete thing that actually happened because it didn't. So
same goes for the other one that people brought up for him. In the Darth Plagueis novel, when he's getting hauled away by Pax Teen's goons, he's like, "Oh, I could easily, kill these two and bring the entire diner down on their head." And it's like, again, no doubt that he could do it, but he doesn't actually do it in that book, so it's not really a full display. You know what I mean?
Apart from anything else, it's moot because you bring up insanely more impressive feats later on in the video.
The storm.
Talking about force storms. His ability to break a building is kind of a given. So it wasn't necessarily, I think, in this category, personally.
Yeah, exactly. And, just not really all that relevant to mention. And just a side note, like, people were bringing up, like, that Vader thing I did where it's, like, in the army and the building and stuff. I brought up Vader, like, several times. And people were like, you're mentioning every single feat for Vader ever. And I'm like, guys, like, Vader actually has army and building feats outside of the ones I mentioned. Like Empire at War, him slaughtering that squadron of stormtroopers, or in that one Rebel comic where he just like demolishes this giant stone, structure, or even in like the Force Unleashed where he like blows apart that Wookiee stronghold. I mean, yeah, he has a lot of feats in those ranges. I didn't want to mention all of them because I didn't want it to be too bogged down,
It pays to be one of the franchise's, flagship, iconic characters.
Exactly.
You get a lot of material. He's
kind of like Superman, in like the sense that he gets kind of like the lion's share of like all the cool powers and stuff, because he's like the face of like, I mean, pretty much the face of the company in a lot of ways. So yeah, it is funny how that works.
Particularly for the comic side of things, his image sells, so he gets a lot of feats in that medium.
He is pretty damn cool looking, you do have to admit.
No doubt.
Okay, and what I would probably describe as a simultaneous display of my competence and my idiocy, we only have one feat to go over for the mountain destruction category, but it's a fairly big one. I mean, ready? Like, I regret not putting this in the video so hard.
I'm
not
surprised.
Like,
yeah, I'm not surprised with your
yeah,
love
you
of
know
Obi-Wan.
me. Like, guys, like me and Callan have literally, like, we both love Kenobi. Like, we have literally spent time just talking about how much we love him. And the fact that I missed this, it's like when I first saw the comment reminding me about this, oh, you forgot this, I literally was doing like the C3PO, like that thing he does when he's like, are you serious? The are you serious C3PO face? I was doing that. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm just ashamed that I forgot this. So anyway, what we're referring to in chapter 44 of the Kenobi novel, Kenobi demonstrates a mountain-level destruction feat by basically lifting and throwing and manipulating, causing fissures, basically everything, with these huge megaliths in the Tatooine desert. It's never described how many of these things he's actually lifting and throwing, but they do describe them as like a very long row. So he's manipulating loads of these. And here's the thing, like the novel also specifically states that these, towers or megaliths, as they're sometimes called, are too high for a normal person to climb, and they blot out the sun. So he's basically moving loads and loads of small mountains casually, and like he doesn't even show too much fatigue when he shows up after this happened. Like this concludes that Obi-Wan is multi-mountain level. And it's like, how could I forget this?
It's one of those. I mean, I'm with you in terms of the love of the moment, and just general enjoying it. But it's one of those scenes, one of those feats specifically, that I find, I'm like, I kind of raise my eyebrow at, because to me, Kenobi isn't a character that should really be capable of this kind of thing. Don't get me wrong, he's extremely powerful. He's extremely powerful, and he's one of the best Jedi that ever lived. He's, as we said many times before, he is the quintessential Jedi. But to me, he's more of the nature of how he kind of is one with the Force.
Well, he's more of a channeler.
Yeah,
I agree.
Precisely. He flows with the Force. He doesn't really manipulate grand on the grand level. Yoda style.
Well, remember
stuff.
he already has several large building feats under his name, like
for it, and he's definitely got the power. Yeah. But this is beyond. Well, not even beyond, but this is just Yoda level, which to me I find it's a little bit past my boundary for what I believe from Obi-Wan. But at the same time, it irrefutably happened. So in terms of what you count.
Well, do remember that in the novel Stealth, Yoda literally states to Kenobi that he was drawn to his Force potential even as an infant. So clearly, Kenobi's potential is insanely huge.
Sure, but it's not it's not just Obi-Wan. I would put this feat past. People like Mace Windu even. I don't attribute this kind of scale to these characters. At least not at the ages and the times we see them in, even in their primes. But nonetheless, it happened, so it's it has to be mentioned, and it's a pretty impressive feat. He's lifting,
to say the least. Oh, and before we do move on though, like some people have tried to debunk this by saying, because like later in the book it notes that Kenobi was holding up like half a ton of rock over a sand youngling, and it mentioned that he was grunting a little bit. Okay, first of all, let me just be clear here. The book specifically states that the half a ton of rock was only covering the sand youngling. Oren Galt and a few others were also, that rock was falling on them as well, so it's clearly bigger than that. Not only that, but earlier in the novel, Kenobi casually, picks up and stops a dewback, which are officially credited as weighing about, I believe it was kilograms. I believe it was somewhere in the range of over 3/4 of a ton, and he did that casually. So that kind of debunks it right there that was difficult for him.
This comes down to just that continuity thing. There's certain writers won't necessarily think about every single detail of how they want to employ the Force. It's kind of circumstantial, and in terms of dramatic tension, you can't have people casually doing everything all the time. So there's that comes into play. But to me, it's the inconsistency.
But again, it talks about the half a ton only being over the sand youngling, not the entire landscape that the rock was falling on. So you have to take that into account.
Yeah, of course. It's just a case of these particular feats from this novel being isolated instances. But Kenobi is one of the most powerful Jedi out there for sure. But this is beyond anything we've ever seen him, be able to pull off. So
is it? I mean,
it's definitely worth mentioning. It's definitely worth mentioning, and I think I agree with you. It's a crying shame you missed it for the video. But at the same time, it is isolated. We never see him do anything even close to this level of power outside of
actually
achieving
we do
oneness.
in the Clone Wars comic that I showed in the building section. We see him uprooting those ship-sized trees.
That is not the same as levitating multiple megaliths on Tatooine.
Okay, fair enough.
That is, don't get me wrong, it's a powerful feat, but that's something I completely buy being within his power. But this is this is the height of Yoda's power we're talking about right here in terms of what is being described.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
for me, it's believable.
It happens.
So basically, for me, it's believable. For you, it's a little shaky, but it is worth noting, and I am very much ashamed that I missed this. So yeah, guys, Kenobi is mountain level.
Definitely.
Enjoy it.
Going by feats, without question.
Kind of like the building destruction section, while I didn't receive too many complaints in the landmass destruction category, several of you guys did bring up a blatant error I made in the discussion with Darth Bane's ritual. In the video, I said that Bane was drawing on the power of roughly a dozen Sith Lords, whereas in the novel, they establish it to be several dozen. That was a blatant error on my part. I misspoke. In my defense, though, I think what happened is I was thinking of the comic when I was writing it at the time, and in the comic version of that feat, you clearly only see a little over a dozen Sith Lords.
It's definitely a lot less on the visual for it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So in the book, it's a lot more. But yeah, that was. I have no excuse for that one. That was a blatant error on my part. I apologize, but yeah, that was. Reddy, why can't I be perfect? Just why?
You're a Hufflepuff.
Exactly. Definitely. But yeah, so that was the mistake on that one. But that also leads us into another display, if you would call it a display, that has to do with that time period and that feat. And that was 10-year-old or 11-year-old Darth Zana shielding her friend and herself from the outskirts of that explosion.
Yeah, now this one is very impressive, and it's a very powerful feat, especially for someone of her age, and definitely speaks towards her potential and what she will go on to be. But the key point there is it's on the outskirts. There is nothing to suggest that she's at the very core of this. An explosion
gets weaker the further out it is. It's it's made abundantly clear in the novel and the comic that she is way far away from that battlefield where the explosion went off.
It just doesn't make sense for anything else to be true. And with that said, that level of shield it's not the same thing as oh god, the name escapes me. Twi'lek from the earliest eras. Oh, this is shameful. I remember.
Tot Danita.
There we go. Tot Danita. Thank you. God, I should never
blocking the heat storm.
Yeah. It's not quite as comparable to that because obviously he's very much on the front line of that one, facing it in person, face to face. But at the same time, it's a noteworthy feat. I just don't think that it translates in the same way that Tots does.
Well, exactly, and it's like that was an unconscious. Yeah, that was an unconscious use of her power. It's not like she just did it like, oh, I better make a shield that's strong enough to just, shield me from this landmass thing. It's like, no, she didn't just do that. So, and people have really overblown this feat over the years. Like I hear about this all the time. Like people are insinuating that Zana is child Zana is landmass level because she could do this. It's like, what?
Yeah,
Do you honestly think that?
people overplay Xana's abilities in general. I think she's very powerful, like more than most other people in the entire history of Star Wars, but it's in a very specific way. And I don't think large scale like destruction is how that manifests. It's more about the specific kind of I'd hesitate to say dueling centric, but in its pinpoint. She's the person who can pour all of her power into those specific individual abilities that will absolutely cut through anybody's defenses. It's not something, she doesn't rip apart entire continents with said power. Not that she is incapable of that, but it's just not what she's known for.
No, she's not. She's more of a subversive fighter. And again, it's like, and it's irrelevant no matter what, because here's the thing: that's defense. That's a force shield. Like, that doesn't mean she could blast away a continent with telekinesis. Like, those don't transfer. That's not how it works.
But by the same token, you say the opposite for Tot. So Tot Danita is shield.
Yeah, true.
It's more of it's not a case of Tot. We're not suggesting that he can definitely do what translate.
Right. Well, I even said that there's no guarantee.
Yeah. But it's worth noting that the power involved is, regardless of being used offensively or defensively, is still worthy of note. And I think it would be for Xana if like Tot, she was right up in the thick of it. She was using it consciously rather than primarily and subconsciously as a child. There's lots of circumstances, but to me that specific feat, it doesn't stand on its own in the same way that Tots does. If she was older, if she was closer, which I don't think is past her ability. I think she's definitely capable of that. But examining feats wise, it just hasn't happened, so we can't talk about it really.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, if her shields on a casual basis are beyond the landmass level, why did she get ragdolled casually by Obelisk Bane in Rule of Two?
Well, that wasn't quite her at her prime, and also it was Bane. But I see your point. If she was as capable as she apparently supposedly is as a child, that would have translated to that point as well.
It doesn't really add up. I mean, and mind you, even later in that same book, Valentine Farfalla is able to partially block a similar attack from Obelisk Bane. So does that mean Valentine Farfalla is as strong as that storm that Bane conjured?
Probably not. But
although
it's all
I will say this, Callan, I just realized, maybe if Valentine Farfalla really is that strong and Lord Hoth is noted to be stronger than him, dude, that further justifies our Lord Hoth Bane video.
We're not going over that.
I'm just saying, further justification.
That one is a lost cause.
It is pretty much a lost cause. I'll admit that, my opinion on that one has kind of wavered over the years. Maybe I should remake it. We'll see. But yeah, in any case, this feat really, it's not a consistent part of her arsenal. It's an unconscious use of her power, and it's just not worth going over, in my opinion.
It's, again, character is definitely up there in power, just not necessarily in that way, and not because of that feat, effectively.
Finally, moving into the planetary destruction category, quite a few people argued that Dark Empire Darth Sidious can't destroy planets with his Force Storm ability because in 2016, the author of Dark Empire, Tom Veitch, basically said that Force Storms, he can't actually control them because they're not natural. They're phenomenons that apparently occur spontaneously when two powerful Force users, have a mental struggle over a vast distance. Okay, Callan, this is a blatant example of death of the author, isn't it?
I mean, I'm not entirely sure why he's decided to come out with this so long after the fact. I mean,
like 2 decades.
The source material is very clear, and accompanying books, reinforcing the feat. The similar instances of it happening elsewhere. This is not an isolated case where it could be, hand waved away, as being, artistic license or just a specific rare occurrence between these two most powerful of characters. It is something that has been established that can happen elsewhere. I don't know why he decided to change his tune on it, but apparently he has, and to me.
Makes zero sense.
Yeah, I'm of the belief
makes zero sense because it's listed as a Force ability, like in the Dark Empire source book. The Dark Empire source book, that thing that was released at the same time as the comic, that's meant to be a companion to it. That thing. that I referenced.
Mean, Star Wars has always played fast and loose with the companion pieces and how accurate they are after the fact, that's for sure. But at the same time, I'm of the opinion that the work has to stand by itself. In most cases, obviously, it's circumstantial on the context and what the author is trying to change, what the author represents, why it's separated from why people want to separate it even from the work. But in this instance, to me, I don't care what he says after the fact. This is what it was. He created it like this. It's been this way for so long. It's not a problem. It's not something that needs fixing. No. I don't think in anyone's eyes. I
mean, if he couldn't control the storms, I mean, is that him trying to say that it was just happenstance that first storm carried Luke all the way to Biss because that's what Palpatine wanted? Like, was it just that? Like, was Palpatine just kind of sitting in his chair, like, oh, that's convenient?
That's convenient, yeah. No, it's clearly, I don't know what it is. That's what confused me about it. If it had if he had a reason for wanting to change it, if it was something that everyone in the fandom hated, or if it didn't make sense in the story,
which isn't the case,
had some sort of moral problem with it in terms of the times, and he wanted to update it, then sure. But this is just a feat that makes sense in the context for the character using it and fits in the story and intention. So I don't know what the point is. But
it makes zero sense. I mean, it's stated to be a Force ability. I mean, like in the Book of Sith section that talks about it, which is written by Palpatine, he literally says, in time I'll be able to control this, and when I do, nothing can stop me. So that debunks it right there that he can't control.
No need for expensive superstar stations then.
Yes, exactly. Like that literally debunks the entire thing right there, and it's stated to be a Force ability in all the guides, and you can clearly see him controlling it. Like people say, oh, he lost control of it in the comic. Yeah, because the comic literally states outright that the reason he lost control of it at the end there was because Luke and Leia severed his connection with their Force harmony abilities. That's literally what happened. It's not like he just lost control of it. Just oh shit, it wasn't like that.
Even if he did it, that doesn't change the fact that he created it in the first place. So it's all very strange. But yeah, definitely
completely nonsensical. And again, classic death of the author. So it really just doesn't hold up. Oh, and by the way, that death of the author thing, that also applies to people like Lucas, Filoni, and everyone's favorite stunt coordinator.
Yeah, that's the example that came to mind for me as well. It depends how much stock you put in that kind of idea. It depends on the context, depends on the situation, because how much of the specific work is facing criticism, how attached it is to the single author. If it's a team of people, a great work that isn't just really held ownership of in terms of the creation side by one person. It's all circumstantial. It changes. Context is always king. But in this instance, yeah, you're right. It's definitely
just doesn't hold up.
Yeah, it doesn't hold up, and
shouldn't be taken. So yeah, he can destroy planets with it. Done deal. The next feat brought up was one that took place thousands and thousands of years ago, and it is the unnamed Sith Witch, who basically unleashed dark side energies all over Umbria that were eventually contained into Lake Nath. Many people thought that this was, asked, hey, why didn't you include this? It's a planetary destruction. And it's like, yes, it's planetary in the sense that she affected a planet. She did alter the environment and kill a lot of life. But she didn't kill the planet. The planet was still alive, and the environment did repair itself eventually. So it's not the same as Nihilus or Vitiate literally sucking the energies and destroying entire chunks of planetoid with their force drain ability. So again, I didn't include that one because I just didn't think it was necessary.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the scope, in theory, it could be, argued that she could escalate and go for the full-on planetary destruction if she wanted to. But in terms of, if you're going by scope alone, people like T, for example, have influenced entire planets just by being on it. So, does that mean she's capable of this? I don't think so.
Yeah, Shakti, bathing Felucia in light side energy and Force Unleashed.
The second she leaves, it just immediately dies and goes back to the dark side
again.
Yeah,
I mean, that is planetary in terms of influence, and that is a notable, accomplishment in her favor, but it's not like she could just, wave her hand and demolish all of Felucia, as badass as that would be.
Yeah, so the scale is still there, definitely, but it's not...
There's a difference between influence and actual destruction.
Well, even apart from that, I mean, the fact that she is using destructive power, it's just and maybe she can scale it up to destroy an entire planet, but the point is she didn't. So it's something we can't. It's just pure speculation. We're listing feats here, not something that might be outside of specific examples.
And that also goes for Thawne, wherein he was containing all that energy in Lake Nath. People were saying, well, he siphoned all the energy, the dark energy from the planet and contained it in Lake Nath. And again, while this is a very impressive feat, I mean, Thawne is ridiculously powerful. I mean, I actually think he's very much underrated in terms of his power. I mean, is like if you look at what he does and like what he's credited with, I mean, yeah, he's a complete and utter powerhouse. But again, that's planetary influence. He didn't like destroy the planet on his own, he just contained all that energy into the lake.
And again, it comes back to that whole argument where, for someone like Tottenita, for example, if a shield can be considered as enough to warrant power containment and maybe being used in offensive abilities as well, it's the same sort of thing. But it's a case of it not being raw energy with the capability of destroying a planet by itself. This is a dark side spirit that's ravaging the land it stands upon. It's not, if those spirits had run rampant, they weren't going to crack the planet in half.
Exactly,
so
which they did.
Scale-wise, it's not the same.
Exactly. So again, definitely a notable feat in Thawne's favor, but not cause for placing him in a planetary destruction category. Similar goes for Darth Plagueis. Again, kind of like Zana's shield count. Like this is a feat that people have overblown so hard, and I have no idea why. Basically, Darth Plagueis, when he goes to the Naboo, it's described that the winter that they had that year was the coldest it had ever been.
It's one of my favorite parts of the book in terms of background notes as well, because it's not directly attributed to him, but it very much, in terms of the dramatic tension,
it's
how
implied.
The line's delivered, it's heavily implied. Yeah. I just love that idea, the fact that he particularly for someone like Plagueis, where it's that cold, calculating personality. He just by his very presence alone, it completely alters the climate when he leaves. It's brilliant. I love the visual, but at the same time, it is heavily implied. It's not confirmed, and even if it is definitely a result of his presence, it's not planetary destruction. It's not even planetary alteration. It's that Theed-wide area in how it's described. So
exactly, and again, it's like with the T comparison. So I guess T is on the same level as Darth Plagueis because she essentially, I mean, her alteration actually is more impressive. Yeah, she didn't just change the weather; she changed the entire alignment.
Yeah.
So I guess T is more powerful than Plagueis, Callan. Who would have guessed?
Not quite, but yeah, it's the same sort. It's the same sort of thing. It doesn't make sense to translate to actual planetary destruction. Certainly an extremely impressive feat, but not one on the destructive scale.
Definitely not. And some people have even claimed that it's his most impressive display of power. And I'm like, is that really more impressive than resurrecting the dead?
I mean, put aside resurrection of the dead, this guy is in tandem with Sidious, sure, but he has completely blinded the entire light side of the galaxy to his extremely powerful presence. The dark side itself is clouding the future perspective of the entire Jedi Order, which by itself makes no sense. But if he's capable of it, he's capable of it, and that should overshadow a little bit of weather climate changing.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, not impressive, not his most impressive feat, and not warranting a placement on the destruction list. Our next one to go over was actually brought up by Connor, and you could see his comment in the video. He was talking about Lord Obi-Wan from the I, Jedi comics and novel when he's equipped with the helm. Now, basically what the helm allows Lord Obi-Wan to do is it basically buffs his ability to control the minds of other sentients, like to an extreme degree. Like he's even able to influence other Sith, which is extremely impressive since Force wielders, are trained to resist telepathic influence, and he's doing that, casually. Basically what his plan was he was going to gather enough energy from the helm, and eventually, his final plan was to basically mind trick every sentient in the entire living galaxy and basically have them kill each other. If you want a visual representation for something like that, the closest I would say would be Valentine's plan in the first Kingsman movie, when he's influencing the populace with those chips. So yeah, it is very interesting, but again, it's like he didn't destroy a planet. He didn't destroy a planet with it. He was just going to have every sentient in the galaxy just kill each other.
Yeah, it's a case of again the scale and the fact that he's pulling this off with all the different people, with all different Sith, even that he is across the galaxy. It's extremely impressive and puts him in the top echelon of all the Darksiders ever were or ever will be. But at the same time,
in terms of telepathy, especially.
For sure. But at the same time, one, he's using an artifact, so it's not personal power alone. Not that matters too much, but it's worth noting. And two, it's a case of kind of planetary destruction on a it's kind of a side note. It's not actually the planets being destroyed themselves. It's just everybody on them killing themselves or killing each other in whatever way that manifests. That could be the equivalent of nuclear destruction or whatever it may be. But it's still just essentially individuals killing each other rather than a specific set of power destroying en masse. But at the same time, you've had esoteric abilities count for the same thing as well in the video, so I suppose it's worthy of note.
Definitely, and I definitely probably should have included, like, in the hypothetical discussion when I was saying how you could mind trick an entire planet's populace and basically have them destroy the planet. So I mean, although he didn't actually do that, like he is more than capable of doing that with the helm. He proves it as much. If he could extend his influence like over multiple planets, I'm pretty sure he could be like, okay, just wreck your planet right now. Like, I have no doubt that he could do that. And that is a mistake on my part. I definitely probably should have used him as like a hypothetical example in the video when I was talking about, using telepathy to destroy a planet. So yeah, that was a mistake on my part. Definitely should have been mentioned. But again, the feat itself that he does display and his plan to go about it, that in and of itself is not planetary destruction. It's influence.
Agreed. Yeah, it's too esoteric.
Yeah, but still pretty cool though. Still
For
pretty
sure.
cool.
I mean, it's one of the most impressive things on the board.
Without question.
It's just not quite as opaque as the other examples.
Definitely. Next up, and this was one that was brought up fairly frequently, we have Yariel Poof disabling the Infant of Shaw bomb in the Republic comics. The Infant of Shaw, like the bomb, it basically, for those of you who don't know, it like gathers up force energy and then unleashes it outward. It is basically a bomb, and it is stated on multiple occasions, in the comic and even in guides, that this thing does have the potential to destroy planets. And Yariel Poof, with his last reserves of energy, basically diffused it. And people were arguing that because he diffused something that can destroy a planet, that would imply that he was channeling planetary destruction power. And while it's an interesting thought, that doesn't actually transfer. There's a difference between diffusing something that's planetary and actually doing something planetary. Like, it's not like he was containing a planet that was, erupting at the seams. You know what I mean, Callan?
For sure, yeah. I mean, we've spoken about how containment and shielding isn't an offensive equivalent anyway. But even if it was, this isn't that instance. He is diffusing the nature of the bomb and I suppose minorly containing it as well. But it's not the same thing as just completely unleashing the same level of power by yourself. He's influencing something that's already there. It would be the equivalent of there being a dark side nexus that a Sith Lord just rips open and has the same effect. It's not their own personal power, so it's circumstantial.
Yeah, it is very impressive, and I think we should note the fact that we should note the fact that he was dying when he did this. Like, he literally had a knife in his stomach and he was dying. Like, they state, Jango Fett literally says he diffused that at the cost of his life. So that means he probably could have saved himself with his energy reserves, but chose not to because he's a Jedi. He's a good person. He'll do those things. So it is very impressive, and it's like a lot of people think Yariel Poof is weak, but when you actually look at what he's credited with and accomplished with, he's definitely not like the strongest on the council. Well, in terms of mind tricks, he is, but like an overall combative ability, he's definitely not. But he's pretty capable in his own right.
For sure, he's no combative giant, but he's definitely got a presence on the council in terms of force power. That's for sure.
Definitely, and it is a good example of a mid-council level being, accomplishing an extremely impressive feat. So people who think that, everyone aside from Anakin, Obi-Wan, Mace, Yoda are fodder, yeah, you're full of it.
Agreed.
Just saying.
Masters are not to be underestimated.
No, they're not. But again, it's not a planetary destruction feat. I mean, if he was actually containing a planet exploding, I'd definitely include him in the video. But again, doesn't count. Different circumstance. Still very impressive, but not worth noting. Last but not least, we have the feats accomplished by the Dark Jedi Brackus. And again, this is one I definitely regret not putting in the video because I stated at multiple points when I was talking about Naga Sadow's and, Lee Makido's supernova ability that you don't need, ships and crystals necessarily to pull it off. And Brackus would have been excellent proof, in one of the Jedi Academy novels, he does partially manipulate solar flares it is implied that he's amped slightly, but nowhere near the same degree as Sadow and Keto were. So that I am kind of kicking myself over not mentioning that one in the sense that it would have been definitive proof that you can teach yourself to use the supernova ability without the crystals, but Yeah, that was a mistake on my part. And I will also say that he didn't destroy a planet with the solar flare. He just kind of manipulates it as like an example of his power. He doesn't cause the thing to actually erupt and destroy planets like Sadao and Keto did.
Thank God.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, you've said it all right there, haven't you? I mean, it's extremely impressive, but it didn't actually, happen, so it doesn't quite count.
Yeah, just that's kind of the gist of a lot of these, hasn't it
Yeah,
been?
they're all potentials, which again, are worth noting. Just not well, apart from the oversights, of course, they're just not necessarily video worthy, especially when they're standing aside, standing alongside better examples of similar traits, or just more impressive characters or more notable characters, as we've said.
Definitely. I mean, it is interesting because Brackus is very powerful. He is noted to be, but again, he is a dark Jedi, and he's nowhere near, cream of the crop with these guys. But again, and he's even noted to have a particular talent with pyrokinesis, with manipulation of fire. So you could argue that maybe he's not quite as atypical, as you may think at first.
That's something that makes it kind of forgive the scale of the feat he's being able to pull off as well. The fact that it is such a natural proclivity. When I said about Obi-Wan, he's definitely powerful enough in terms of his presence with the Force to pull off the kind of feats that he does with the Monoliths. But to me, it's just that the way that his Force power manifests is so different from that type of power that it works better for me when he's channeling. And it's the same thing with Brackus, because he's noted to be a powerful.
He literally he's literally able to turn. What's that one spell in Harry Potter that causes the fire snake?
Oh,
what's that one?
I can't remember. But unless you mean Fiend Fire.
That might, yeah. He literally, I think that might be it. He literally can do fiend fire pretty much. He can make the fire go into shapes and have them act on their own. It's freaky the way he does these things. His ability with pyrokinesis is incredible.
And that's what lets me buy the kind of the high level abilities that he's putting off, because they are specific types. It's not like he's just able to manifest his power in any way he chooses, which is I like that kind of thing when it comes to character usage.
Exactly. So and again, it just goes with what we've mentioned before. He doesn't destroy a planet with it. It's more of a scale of influence. So again, that just to me didn't strike me as being necessary to put him on the list. Simple as that.
But that's the last one, I believe. Yeah.
I believe so. Yes. Any closing thoughts, Callan?
Not really. None that we
don't underestimate Jedi and Sith.
Well, yeah. Besides that, never underestimate the power of a Force user. That's for sure. But nothing that we haven't covered really. I think we've done a good job of kind of explaining why, or if not, if there wasn't a particular reason, then apologize enough for having missed some of these things.
Definitely. Like I said, even a Jedi is not infallible, but we try our best.
Indeed.
I kind of want to see a picture of us in our Jedi forms fighting an army now. If any artists are watching this, we'll definitely give you credit if you do that. Just saying. But yeah. Well, anyway, thank you to everyone who brought up, the feats that we missed. I hope this helped answer a lot of questions that you guys had with the video. Callan, thank you very much for, coming on with me on this one. It was, great to have you here.
Happy to be here.
I hope you had a decent time yourself. And for those who keep asking about Plo BT and Kianikit, Callan, that's all on you.
Stop
still.
asking.
We will say.
That's all I have to say about that.
Well, we will say we're hoping to maybe get it out at the end of this month, but if we can't get it out at the end of this month, we'll definitely be able to get it out, some point, mid-August. Right, Callan? You told me as much.
Yes, we shall definitely attempt to do that. If nothing else, we'll have something equally as interesting to put out because Evan is coming to visit me soon.
Yes. So keep posted for that because that'll be fun. And we're also it's not just gonna be me and him. We're gonna have someone else join us. You'll see who it is when we finally release the vlog, which will be released on Ready4's Fanalysis channel, which I recommend everyone who's watching this to check out if you have not done so already. It's basically our channel for vlogs where we review books and movies and just have a good old time. So please check that out if you haven't done so already. Well, guys, thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks again to Ready for joining me on this one, and I'll see you guys later.